Fantastic. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. It gives me, especially with so many people here, it makes me so happy. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Amélia Brandão Costa and Rodrigo da Costa Lima of the Porto-based firm Architecture Matters, which I understand from all my research you describe as both the name of your firm and the philosophy under which you live and practice, which I love. Architecture Matters, that's why we're all here. Amélia and Rodrigo are this semester's Bishop visiting professors. The William Henry Bishop professorship was established in 1973, funded through the bequest of Mr. Bishop, who was a member of the Yale College class of 1867. Mr. Bishop studied architecture while at Yale and then went on to become a newspaper publisher and a writer. Later, he was an instructor of modern language at Yale and then became the United States Consul to Italy in 1903. He was clearly an interesting guy. The position supported by his bequest, which included the words distinguished visiting architect, which we often pluralize, and it's been held by many, many noted practitioners over its 50-year history. The first Bishop professor was Harry Cobb. Others who have held the position include Arata Isasaki, Charles Gwathmey, Bridget Shim, and Glenn Murcutt. And partnerships have also served as bishop professors, including Julie Eisenberg and Hendrik Koenig, Sean Griffiths and Sam Jacob, and Adib Kure and Carrie Penabad last year. So it's very much an honor to add Amélia and Rodrigo to that list. Amélia Brandão Costa studied architecture in Porto, Stuttgart, and Milan, if I read your CV correctly. And before establishing the practice with Rodrigo in 2007, she worked at a variety of offices across Europe, including at Herzog & de Meuron. In addition to being a practitioner, she is a writer, editor, publisher, critic, and curator, and she has also been visiting faculty member at schools around the world, and that list now happily includes Yale. Rodrigo da Costa Lima also studied architecture in Porto. Like Amélia, he worked at offices across Europe, including Herzog & de Meuron, before co-founding this practice in 2007. He too has been a visiting faculty member and guest critic at universities and cultural institutions worldwide, and we are very, very happy to have Rodrigo and Amélia with us at Yale this semester as the William Henry Bishop visiting professors, plural, of architecture. The work of Architecture Matters spans a large number of project and program types, from houses and apartments to exhibition design, retail spaces, and various forms of installations. Their advanced studio this semester is called The Daily Show. It does not feature Jon Stewart. It is a studio about the performance of daily life. So I'd quote them here. Daily Show explores humanity's relationship to technology. Daily Show examines the many roles and identities of the architect. Daily Show imagines a new relationship between work and play. Daily Show sees life as an urban performance. In the end, it's one big show. So now it's your show. Let's go. Please join me in welcoming.
So firstly, we would like to thank Dean Deborah Beck for inviting us. We were thrilled to receive this invitation to be part of the Advanced Studios for this fall semester. It is an immense honor to be part of this prestigious institution and to be considered for this position. This opportunity to share our knowledge and to learn from such distinguished colleagues and students is something that we greatly value. So, as Dean Beck already explained, Rodrigo and I are together on this journey dedicated to architecture ever since we met on a school trip to Barcelona. So we started in Porto, then we did my exchange program in Germany, and then later Rodrigo and I worked together for Herzog de Meuron in Basel. And then later I was in Milano at Thomas Academy. So we have established many friendships from these times that we were living abroad, and we also got the chance to experience and live different cultures and to be open to always learning.
Yeah, we need the help here. It's not showing everything.
Did somebody run up?
You have to adjust the screen. It's not showing everything.
Ah, there.
Yeah.
Good.
So I was saying about that we learned how to always be open and learning.
Learning by listening, learning by reading, learning by doing, learning by drawing.
So we first started using our family name, but architecture matter is just more suitable to what we have been doing over the years. And architecture matters became the name and philosophy under which coding and art practice.
We like the idea of the office name as a manifesto. We also like to be known by our first names, which makes our names more common, and for that less related to our work, to our past, and to our future.
So, and bringing up the question, what does it mean to be a practicing architect today, or what does it mean to be an architect today? To us means working under this duality of meanings, matters of architecture and architecture matters, that they represent this diversity of activities that we do, from the architectural projects, curatorial, academic, or even editorial. So we are also founding directors of Indexnewspaper and Porto Academy. Both Indexnewspaper and Porto Academy are inseparable parts of our work as architects. These roles as editors and curators considerably affect our work as authors, not just because of their time requirements, but also because they allow us to be changing and broader structures, and always with this resilience and joy the way we live and work. So we will present some projects that represent our practices, and these can be matters that are at the same time industrial offer, traditional solutions, regulations, sustainability, opportunities and constraints, new responses given by opportunities. So each matter has its own ID, a specific number, and for each matter, independently of the subject, we always use the same methods: analysis, diagnosis, concept, and strategy.
Our education as architects gives us the opportunity to understand many different fields of knowledge, and we be able to synthesize and to make it simple, to make it work, connecting with all those different abilities.
It is said that Aristotle affirmed pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work, and so it is, and in the way that pleasure adds an extra quality to the work.
And that's why we always say yes.
So when we returned to Portugal, we opened our office in Porto, and we started every other architectural practice with commissions of projects of many different scales. Here, a renovation of a house, a hotel. This was extension of a small house. This was a competition competition for library and cultural center in Ireland that we did with Rui Alves. And this is a project of a student's residence and cultural center. And the specificity of the program allows us to understand the intended environment for the project, which was based on this complicity of nature with the harmony of the different parts of the program. So the concept of the project is per se tied to the idea of limits and of time. So we built several models in order to understand the real dimension of the program. We've tried a few solutions that led us to concentrate the program in order to free the center of the plot to garden area. So a new perimeter builds with clarity the limits of construction and the degree of exposure and intimacy of the different functions of the program. So we propose to build a scenario with references of appending constructions, adaptation items that fit in the history of any courtyards. So the building extends through the interior of the plot and enhances the use of the garden. The section through the limit wall and through the same, forgot to say that the program of the residence also considers the use and structure of the existing house because it repeats the same structural principle. And the rooms inside of the garden, they share the living room and kitchen space, while the rooms facing the streets are autonomous. So here the section longitudinal through the residence and by the limit wall. And this is a section through the residence and through the patios. And this construction on the inside establishes a direct connection to the adjacent buildings, which are these houses, stores, and unnamed streets. And here you can see through the model this compromise of scale of the students' residence, the transition of scales to the existing buildings. We are interested in an intimate relation between the program, the construction, new and existing, and the garden.
This house is about designing two different scale of landscapes. The outside patios relate to the terrain, and the inner courtyard on the first floor relates to the house inner courtyard.
We speak of eternity in a small-scale building with a huge symbolic meaning. Several granite blocks and a marble rock, a varied vaulted ceiling, and a steel door build a chapel like a tomb with sacred and timeless ambience. The granite blocks of stone define the outside and inside shapes and design a barrel vaulted inner ceiling. An excavated marble block builds the altar facing east. The outside light, filtered through the marble, becomes dim on the inside as it reveals the stone veins. The perforations on the roof allow the natural light to shine in according to its orientation and seasonal variations. The door is built in perforated sheets of steel that provide ventilation to the space. The inner space of the door is painted in golden color, which emphasizes its thickness. This is a project of two houses in Guimarães. This is an area very well known for the industry, especially textiles, but Guimarães is also the birthplace of Portugal. And this place reflects the paradigm of a rural site completely transformed by the industry. The plot had a house, a factory, and a warehouse, all obsolete. The proposal was seeking for a more profitable use of lands and the full use of the area to allow the coexistence of the two houses that were requested by the clients. Therefore, the factory buildings and warehouses were demolished. With the demolition, it was possible to have free area for the construction of a new house and a new garden. The use of stone that once built an industrial landscape now creates a new topography that postpones the physical limits of the garden of the existing house, and it also allows to contain a new courtyard house, which in the end was not built. So the existing house was renovated and adapted to the new place. We also adapted the program of the house for the new family moving in. On the inside, the project aimed to redesign the interior in order to reduce circulation areas and enhance the overall use. Like in many projects in our office, we always look for this connectivity of spaces, how the functions of the program interact with each other, this special continuum. So the new house was presented as a distortion of the original perimeter of the plot. With this strategy, the existing house gains proportions, and the walls, they appear as if they were prior to the house. It's a project of another house in this same industrial context. The containment of spaces is similar to the programmatic sequence of a factory. All spaces comply with a specific program, although they are in service of a larger space. We look for the raw character of an industrial building, but approaching to a residential scale, which is built from an absence of matter that results in this central courtyard. Again, the special continuum and the interaction of the different functions.
There is a narrative sequence when going from the living areas to the bedrooms. So you go here. So it starts from a narrow staircase, passing through the deep and tall library to come to a compressed bedrooms hall. This all this is followed by the inclination of the roof.
The next project is about the renovation of a house located in the historic area of Se, in Porto, close to the cathedral and overlooking the river. It is placed in the Stairs of the Truth, translating the name, where the Arch of the Truth stands. The arch belongs to the existing aqueduct from the primitive Fernandina wall that once limited the city of Porto. The project aims to recover an identity for a house which once housed several families and suffered from an overlap of adjacent buildings that prevented its relation to the outside space and the river. As this was once a place of gathering and meeting point of the neighborhood, this particular characteristic became an important input to think about the house and the way it would relate again with the city and its inhabitants, because it was abandoned for such a long time. So we wanted to bring out this strong relation of the ground floor, the most public space of the house, where you can relate yourself to the outside and the people that are passing by, going down to the river or the other way up. The project resets the origin of its limits. The Back to Origin promotes a vertical trip that enhances the use of the garden at different levels and restores this relation with the street and the river, and it proposes a total appropriation of space. When cleaning what was left from time, we discovered the stone walls and the foundations of the house at the entrance level. So now the house praises its foundation and it unveils the constructive truth. Everything is shown in their natural appearance and rawness. The stairs are an important gesture in this house, also very characteristic of this area of the city. Here inside, the orientation adds to the stairs, adds the time to the house with a different spatial and functional principle from floor to floor. They are not just a vertical connection, they are a travel, a moment of pause that prepares and guides you to a new moment of the house. As we go up, on the first floor, you can still see the structure, you can see the sliding doors, and you can see how things work, but then now they are painting and have new materials such as the marble and the mirror. And once going up again, approaching to the most intimate spaces, the house dresses itself all up to then finally omit the constructive truth. It becomes completely abstract because you are not able to see identify the structure or a specific detail anymore. Regarding the outside space, and as I've mentioned, we have cleaned all the adjacent constructions and all the existing stone was preserved, also due to the difficult access to the place. And with the dismantle of the stones blocks, we reuse them in pavements and reconstruction of walls or even to make new walls. So we were thus able to give the house an outdoor space with which it had no relation. Here in plan, so you get first in the house through its foundation, the entrance level, and then you go up to the most private spaces, the kitchen area and dining, connected and facing the river. There's a new opening that we did on the front facade to give more light from south, and another new opening here that allowed to establish a connection to outside space that was not existing. Here on level 2, we find the bedroom and closet area and toilet, and this level has a more close relationship with the outside space as a private terrace, also due to the new opens we made and also of the cleaning of these overlapping adjacent constructions.
And on the roof, there is the next room for a special guest.
So then we started a new challenge. We were invited to be part of an editorial project, and even before it started and to be published, it was going to end. So Rodrigo and I decided to make it happen, even if we didn't know anything about publishing or printing. So Indexnewspaper is a magazine printed in newspaper paper, and the covers have artworks by different artists. If you can't convince them, confuse them. This is a sentence by President Harry Truman. So we came across this sentence while choosing the right font for this publication, And it became our leitmotif to bring back a printed publication of architecture that then seemed to be running out. So each edition contains an interview, an office space where we show the working space of architects, projects, and essays. This is the launching event of Index Newspaper number 1. We invited Valerio Giatti, featuring the interview and cover section, for a talk club in a famous villa venue in Porto. So there was a conversation between the public and Valerio Giatti. We displayed the spreads of the magazine, plus these aluminium printing plates in all the different colors that build the magazine, and we displayed it throughout the pool tables. This was Index Newspaper number 2, and we here featuring architect Wilder Victaia, with whom later we work in another project. And here on Index Newspaper number 3, we did an interview to Christian Carrias, and we showed the work of the photographer Tito Moraz, and we worked with both of them later. We did a research project with Christian Carrias for ATH in Zurich, and we did the studio space for Tito Moraz. So with Index Newspaper, we always try to have moments that somehow point different timings of our publication. So this time we came up with the car dating. Here was in Lisbon at Alex Factory. Taking the concept of the speed dating, we kept the same rules, the period of time and the intimacy. The intimacy that is proportioned by being with someone strange in an eye-to-eye contact and very close to. And this intimacy was emphasized by being inside the car with someone one just admires or is just curious about. Well, this should have a sound. This was in the School of Architecture in Porto.
David has sound. Can we do it? No.
It's okay. Okay. It was with great enthusiasm that we had the opportunity to select a place in a vast location for the studio for a photographer. A pre-existing wall and a small elevation shaded by pine trees seduced us. A regular geometry points the place and defines the studio space. The meeting of two axes defines the center with precision, where the structure is also revealed. The 5 resulting spaces correspond to the needs of the photographer. So the building is poor in shape and in the matter that builds it, but it respects the character of the photographer that works in it. But it also gets close to the rural way of building one can find in the local landscape. And Porto Academy is the result of enormous passion for architecture as a discipline that we started in 2013 in the School of Architecture of Porto, and it was meant to be a one-time happening that we are still doing it. In a Portuguese context, the different architecture practices that were on display at Index Newspaper were showing us new ways of representing, of drawing and building in architecture that to us was not so new because we had this experience while working for Herzog de Meuron, but it was completely different from the conservative way of teaching in the Portuguese school, clearly far from the Central European reality. So, therefore, Porto Academy comes to life as a manifesto of pluralism and opportunity based on a close tuition from a diverse range of architects, artists, and curators. So we aim to provide to the students the opportunity of meeting a variety of approaches in an informal setting, other than the academia, and with professionals that are also deeply involved with education within the field of architecture. It is an alternative educational experience that where students learn firsthand from invited guests, invited tutors. So their specific and personal approach is what interests us the most. We believe that through the experience based on a closed and free thematic tuition will lead to a meaningful discourse of architecture. So to us, Porto Academy is a complement to the prevalent idea of a school.
We've been doing lots of interviews, and this one was with Junior Ishigami, and this one with Jean-Philippe Vassal, and it was published on Indexnewspaper 4.
The project we'll now present is about an old carpentry with 3 water mills from earlier times. It sits at the banks of the river Ancora in the Minho region north of Portugal. It is still under construction. It is meant to be a house for a couple with no children. So setting a purpose for the building while willing to preserve its character seems to reflect a paradox. A new structure suggests an imbalance that opposes the original walls, thus containing the new program of the building. The intention supports the new roof, but also the new big openings that establish a clearer relation towards the river and the garden. The question of matter and geometry is brought by the new function and expresses the contemporaneous way of living. And the wooden doors hold the premise of a new house with an industrial atmosphere. Here's the mezzanine floor plan, the ground floor plan, it's one room, and the existing basement. And here in section you can see the different spaces. We were invited to an installation for an exhibition space of a summit inside a very known building in Porto, which is the car park Silo Alto. So 4 walls made of big blocks of cork designed the main space of the exhibition and conducted the visitors to the different exhibition areas of the venue.
Those walls protected the venue from the winds, reduced the acoustic conditions, and gave us the chance to draw a bow tie plan.
This was our first monograph we published with Indexnewspaper. And we were again invited to do an exhibition space of another summit, and this time we used 60 piles of bricks. With these 60 piles of bricks were covered with mirror panels. It was inside of this obsolete public building in Porto, an old slaughterhouse, which is now being converted to a new cultural center in Porto and is a project by King Okuma. So the piles of bricks transform the space into kind of chaotic landscape with all the reflections promoted by the use of the mirror. And this type of fast design and execution projects, but of great limitations, require a great power of synthesis and pragmatism, and this is why it's a challenge that we are always very pleased to work with.
This project was with Martin's Architecture Office, and those piles stayed after the event and became the first stones for the renovation of the building.
This was a competition we did together with Lucina and dos Santos for this Natural History Museum deposit in Chile. There were 3 existing buildings that had to be kept, and they would serve as containers, a space for deposit of information. So we designed this elevated infrastructure parallel to the highway, and this would connect the entrance of new materials to the research labs and then to the existing buildings.
The new building relates to the scale of the site. It's an unend flat landscape next in an old airport and next to the highway. We
also published 10 monographs about 10 different architectural practices. This time we did it in the format of a book, where you can have two possible readings. One, you can go through the book through the images, and another reading is through the text. We did this workshop in Sagres, in the Algarve, south of Portugal, together with the University of Stuttgart and the School of Porto. So students of both universities had to build a nomadic cinema with the local resources they could find. So we had the fishing nets and the wooden boxes from the local fishermen and the wooden panels. The display of the wooden panels led the visitors to the inside of the cinema. Building stories took place in Lisbon at Garagem Sul. It's the venue for architecture at the Belém Cultural Center. Building Stories is an exhibition about what is not immediately perceived at first sight in architecture. It's an exhibition about the backstage, how architecture is produced, built, and used. Our commission was here to design an exhibition space and establish a relationship between three different architectural practices. Architecture in the Vila Victoria, Maio, and Ricardo Beck-Garden have architecture as a common ground, but their very own expression how to think about it and how to build on it. So their individual and unique approaches reflects the singularity of their work, but a paradox when planning one single exhibition. So building focus was focused on the architecture as such by the Vila Victoria, where the building materials were displayed throughout the exhibition space in the same way they arrive at the construction sites. An installation from Maio with street posters placed on the new columns made by formwork that gave a new configuration to the exhibition space, and the construction of a house on site of a project that was being built at the same time in Alentejo by Ricardo Beck-Garden. So we had parts of projects on one-to-one scale being built on sites, building process was shown, but also drawings, sketches, and models and movies were presented to the public to reveal the truth of construction. Though it only represents parts of building, it allows us to understand the scope of complexity and of architecture. The exhibition challenged the visitor to perceive life and architecture through the work of three different characters, three site-specific approaches where these different stories are told, but they make one single story.
In the end, the space of the exhibition was one structured landscape with monuments and a big house for all.
This was the first time we did an open-air lecture, and this time with Stephen Hall as our guest. After this, we started doing every time the lectures outside. We also published with Indexnewspaper the works that we were doing with Porto Academy. This was an interview that we did for the Swiss artist Not Vital.
We have been doing lots of reviews, which we like a lot, and this time was one of the times we went to ETH.
So based on the successful experience of the summer school and following invitations from friends, institutions, and previous guests, we decided to move next to them, trying to settle this proximity we want to keep. And this move around the world prevents closing the gap between ambitious students and architects. So we did our first visiting school in Mexico City. First studios work over Luis Barragan's legacy inside of two of his main buildings, Casa Studio Barragan and Casa Gilardo. We did the diploma ceremony at Jomex Museum, and it was a privilege to be working inside of these main masterpieces. This is a printing error that we like very much.
For nomads, the home was the space composed of the shelter and the men with their utensils, furs, tapestries, etc. The shelter could vary, but the home inside the shelter was the same, because it existed as an independent idea of the physical envelope. For being an idea, it could be rebuilt in any place or circumstance. Home was with them and within them. Because the home existed as an idea, there was a future, there was pleasure, there was joy. This is part of a text of João Pedro Seródio that we were able to publish in Resilience and Joy. And this text is about the pleasure in architecture, and it's also about the permanency of an idea, which is something very dear for us. As Caesar would say, a good building is also a future good ruin.
And because we are always in this swap of methods, we return to projects and some houses that very close to the beach in Afif. It's Minho region, north of Portugal. All houses share the fact they are holiday houses in the same context, very close to the sea. Also, there were two special conditions: the sea view and to have an extra space to accommodate an unexpected guest. So this was the first house we drew, the starting point. This is a house that stands on the first level in one space with a balcony towards the sea in a continuous space of living where the different functions share one common space. So a slab outlines the new floor as if it was a street, and the pillars punctuate the new landscape like monuments. Here there's a staircase that leads to the skylight on top, which is big enough to fit an extra bed. The Pedro Melo house takes advantage with the social area takes advantage of the uniqueness of the land, so to create this privileged relation with the sea. Here on section the ground floor plan. Then the bedrooms on the first floor, and then this in section you can see the extra space, the skylights on top with the extra bedroom that gives access to the roof terrace.
We also been doing some design pieces.
This is a project we did with Cesar Moreira, two houses for two families that share a common garden but are separate by a large patio between them. It's an infrastructure to inhabit. There are two walls with 76 meters, which are 5.5 meters apart. Here in section you can see the two houses separated by the patio. And in the ground floor plan and the first floor plan. Here a view from one house to the other, and the patio that divides the two houses and the sea view. So Resilience and Joy is the book that we did, and Resilience and Joy is the title that we found to propel our work as architects and a motto to stand for life. We believe this title is deeply connected to architecture, as resilience is mandatory within the too long process of conception and realization of a project, but also has to do with the joy that has to do with pleasure, and the pleasure inherent to the condition of being an architect and how it brings importance to the every little detail in our everyday life. So this publication, as in an atlas, is a compilation of contributions from the Porto Academy previous guests, and it reflects the singularity and specificity of each one and the Porto Academy as such. This is a project that we did with Lenza and Ciro Miguel. The question here was, what if there was no earth, no place to ground buildings, and no place to stand or grow life? Following the 21st American Iberian Biennale theme, Conciliation Strategies, we proposed to lie down our bodies on earth, to feel the smell of the soil after the rain and brave our body silhouette on the ground. In the end, it's about how much land do we need. We propose an exhibition focused on matter extraction, its transportation and production. An exhibition made of contributions of land pieces from different countries to make a universal common soil. This was the Porto Academy visiting Versailles that we did. It was integrating the Biennale of Landscape and Architecture of Ile-de-France region, and we were working in the School of Architecture of Versailles.
And the building behind is Mosh School.
From us. And back to Porto. We're also doing exhibitions on the final day. We're taking over the school spaces and outside. So art galleries can invite independent contemporary thinking and living. Galleries as venues for artists to show their work. They challenge us to question ourselves and our time. Galleries may be the first to know, collectors go in advance. Other interested people, academics, they just come along. So the exhibition openings are public ceremonies, celebrations. So Résidence Rendezvous perpetuates the moment of the vernissage, the main social event of an art gallery. So Résidence Rendezvous takes over the art gallery with living. The work begins with useful piles in one of the gallery rooms, like nomadic tools in an open container, waiting the opportunity to be placed and used in the venue. Their improvised engagement is the moment that unveils the object's truth and our own truth about living. This is the moment where objects by David Cullen here are featured on display, and is the moment of living. The performative objects thus represent the essential we're moving to and with different purpose in the gallery space. And they are moving to as a performative act. The improvisation enables and encourages spontaneous action. The act of displaying objects through the different spaces of the art gallery is itself communal. It is a shared act of representing home and a shared feeling of feeling at home. The objects are performing with the different players, including the audience. It offers a glimpse into cinema verité, where one can see the interaction of real objects, people, and art on display, all representing possible truths as aspects of life. And when the party is over, objects are back to storage for the next party to be set up. We did an interview to the Mexican artist Bosco Sali. And MIUI is a studio that we did last year at La Salle School of Architecture in Barcelona with Rui Pinto. The studio is willing to promote change in what is considered stylish truth. We are interested in change as a continuity tool. So existing private houses and public structures recognized by their architectural heritage value are the basis for the studio work. Working with existing is fundamental to today's practice. The program of the studio intends to generate a double dimension to the study cases. To a private part, me, a public one, we will be added, and vice versa. Juxtapose private with public, social with reserves, commercial with residential, also creating a paradoxical condition on the circularity of living with sharing and public. So we were visiting Sweden. And we were also visiting the school of Mendrisio.
We had the privilege to listen from Mary Botta the stories behind the foundation of the Academia, and it was fantastic and unforgettable.
This is a project that we're also currently working on. It's a renovation of a house and the construction right now. This house is located in the Minho region, and it fits the requirements of the previous house we were showing, the sea view, and the extra space to accommodate an unexpected guest. The house is built in stone, and its renovation follows the archaic way of doing it. Every stone is preserved and put in place where needed, or even to complete faults in other walls. It's being built by hands. The project for the house intends to enhance the relation of the garden with the house through the new big openings that makes us feel that we are outside and enjoying the views and the sound of the sea. And the backstage of the house is composed by a courtyard, exterior courtyard, that gives lights and adds space to the private functions of the house on the ground floor. Here we work with the artist and the art gallery. The work of Xavier Almeida is always performative. The space is static, time is slow, and the soundtrack is noisy. Dark sound is a non-sound, but also a non-color and a non-sense. This was the studio that we did this January in Bangkok. It was mandatory to use AI in the program, so we did it for the first time. So the Machines Club was a studio willing to highlight what is considered daily life performances, but looking at the daily self-jobs of the street vendors in Thailand. Its very own aesthetics and urban performances. And we wanted to bring to light these invisible entrepreneurs by emphasizing its genuine theatrical condition. The program of the studio intends to generate a job and its own self-machine to operate in the city. So the students had to inform AI of their intentions by developing projects by writing and their ability to dialogue with AI, but the process was restricted to 5 conditions that were sorted out through the groups, and which were the program, the architect, style, photographer, and movie scenario. The shared intellectual process resulted in new performative machines.
This is a photo montage we did for an exhibition that we were curating about lost competitions that would happen inside the building about to be renovated in Zurich.
And Clandesta, we did it with the DFUs of Faustino. This time we are taking over the gallery as our playground. Clandesta is the performative act of a group of people by sharing space and experience of being illicit. The contravention of laws and regulations sets the aim of the hidden gathering with a secret guest list. People will come with a personal object to meet and inevitably improvise the conversation. Personal objects become tools performing with the different players who are challenged to the discussion. One is able to see the performative act of being clandestine as a voyeur, but with consent permission.
This is a contribution we did for a new art gallery in Porto. We simply wrote on a stone we found by the sea, "We want to live like common people like you." That is a sentence from the pulp.
And this year we visit Barcelona with Porto Academy. So architecture matters because it is a constantly evolving discipline that challenges us to observe, think, and find creative solutions. Architecture is also the material expression of our history and our culture. Architecture matters because it connects us to our past and inspires us to build a better future. The same way we started our path, we close this presentation with this image of Barcelona. Thank you.
Well, before we go outside, I think we have some questions. Somebody does. All right, go ahead. Microphone.
Oh, thank you. It's an incredible honor. Thank you very much for the lovely presentation. I think we've got to see some incredibly lovely, quaint, and at times eclectic collections of projects. My question revolves around scale, and the scales of living, the scales of the quotidian. And I'm really curious, in the selection and in the kind of presentation of your projects, the earlier roots of your collaborative practice here, how have you negotiated that idea of scale? Were there projects that were too large for you to think about, to want to think about? And, is scale also a concept that you grapple with in the context of your editorial and your curatorial and your academic organization with the Porto Academy? Thank you.
We are bad on business, so we don't choose.
No, we always say yes to projects, but the scale of the buildings or the scale of what we do sometimes has to do with legal constraints also, or expectations from the clients on what is possible to build. Many things are at stake now when planning a project. Also has to do with budgets. Really depends.
Other questions?
Hi. I know your studio this semester here and in the past has dealt with artificial intelligence and maybe the opportunities it affords us. I was wondering if you could speak a bit to your position on its usefulness or any drawbacks you may have encountered so far through the process.
So the use of the artificial intelligence, and we said this when we had these questions in the beginning, it is to be used as a tool that we have to work with, not to be imposed by artificial intelligence, to use it as a tool in our benefits, and from this we are able to come up with maybe something that is not expected and to work with this. It is meant to be used in this way.
Hello?
Oh, we know you.
We know each other already. I wanted to ask you, because we saw such a deep variety of work, curatorial work, we saw editorial work, architecture, and I wanted to ask you about your education and about how it prepares you to approach not only the world of architecture, but all these different disciplines as well.
I think we had a very traditional education. I think all this traveling and living abroad opened our minds and to see how things really worked in architecture. And I think this combination of our basis of education allowed us also to interpret these new visions of presenting architecture. I think the basis of education is very important. And to be traditional, it's okay to be traditional in this sense, but to be open to learn and to see all these different types of education. When I was in Germany, I had I was in shock. It was completely different from my school. The way it worked, the system, everything was completely different. So to learn from other schools, it opens also our way of practicing and how we do our things in the office.
We also know you.
We also know each other very well. I guess one of the inquiries our design studio, which I think is actually the most important one, is taking on the various roles of an editor, a curator, an architect, so on. And as we've seen you guys move between these roles constantly, how do you find that displacement between these roles? Like, how do you find that jumping between these roles lends itself to the next? In that process, I don't know if it's a linear process, if it's you're constantly working on these at the same time.
It's pretty much like that. We are.
You know, on the same time.
It's everything is happening at the same time. You just have to be focused. During the time you are working in one thing and then pass to the other, you have to be really focused. And otherwise you lose yourselves in what you have to do and planning what you have to do next.
The thing is that as the way you are trained as an architect, you know, opens you these opportunities. You know, it's not that to work as an architect you have to make buildings, right? You have the opportunity to study architecture at least for 3 years, and then you study a bit more, but it's a privilege to have this opportunity to study any matter. You know, if you have opportunity to study architecture, so for 5 years you are kind of an architect, right? And then after it you will see, and then you manage, because there's a lot of learning, and then it gives you lots of different opportunities. It's not just about making buildings. Of course we like to design buildings, and we were mainly trained for this. But then we start to get all these opportunities, and we went through this. And actually, there's a background, a knowledge that opens you these opportunities. And this knowledge you have it in architecture a lot.
Just want to say thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say thank you too. Let's really thank Amelia and Rodrigo for their talk.